On today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're proving that small spaces can have big personalities. Today, we're taking you coast to coast for an inside look at 4 incredible homes under 500 square feet, each one brimming with creativity, charm, and smart design solutions. First, we're off to Washington, D.C., where historian and content creator Ashley has transformed her 480 square foot studio into a maximalist masterpiece. With clever IKEA hacks, DIY projects, and a deep love of history, she's created a space that feels both curated and cozy. Then, we head to the heart of Chelsea in New York City to visit Lisa Liu in her 350 square foot studio. Lisa has mastered the art of renter-friendly design, turning her apartment into a peaceful retreat with ingenious storage solutions and a thoughtful layout. Next, we soak up the sunshine in Los Angeles with Lindsay O'Brien. As an art and home merchandiser at Etsy, Lindsay has infused her 450 square foot space with vintage finds, playful decor, and a touch of 1970s nostalgia. Every piece tells a story, and every inch of her home is filled with creativity. Finally, we step inside the glamorous 500 square foot studio of Natalie Aldridge. As an interior designer with a love for old world charm, Natalie has curated a stunning mix of vintage treasures and DIY projects that make her space feel timeless and elegant. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, my name's Ashley and welcome to my 480 square foot DC studio. I'm so excited to show you around. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name's Ashley. I'm a historian and welcome to my 480 square foot studio in DC. So I've lived here for almost 2 years and it is rent controlled and it's an older building. So I knew that it had great bones, it had great light, and I really liked the space in general. And it had the potential to be more. And so that's what I was really looking for. I was looking for something that was affordable, but also functional. And it was originally just one big room, a studio. And I knew that I could make it more and I could do a lot with it. I didn't really renovate anything. Everything is still renter friendly, but I knew that I could do a lot doing renter friendly projects throughout the apartment. I wouldn't say that I have one particular decorating style. Mainly, I just love color and I love pattern and I love texture. And so I love combining all of that together. And I just kind of started with the giant pink bookshelf. I knew that that was really the statement piece that I wanted, and I wanted to create a built-in feel that would also give me the feeling of having multiple rooms so that my bedroom wasn't in the middle of my living room. And so I started there, and then once I constructed it and I painted it pink, it really just kind of brought it together and inspired me to really lean into the color and kind of that really maximalist, fun vibe throughout the apartment. I have a lot of DIY hacks in the apartment. Almost everything is kind of a hack and something that I did, because the problem, or I guess I should say the challenge of a small space, is that it is hard to source appropriately sized and functional furniture for. So I definitely have done a lot of IKEA hacking or just kind of furniture hacking in general. I have a closet system in my bedroom that gives me an incredible amount of storage. I have my coffee table that was actually a console table that I cut down to coffee table size because I couldn't find a coffee table that was narrow enough for my space. I do a lot of painting of furniture, of refinishing, adding cool hardware. My bar cart is a really fun IKEA hack that I did using pool noodles to give it a kind of scalloped texture. And so when you're approaching a small space, I hate the myths that you can't use color, you can't use a lot of texture or patterns, that you have to keep it simple. I don't think that's true at all. But I think what you do have to do is keep it really, really functional so that your space doesn't feel overwhelming and like all of your furniture and your items are closing in on you. Welcome to my living room. Obviously, the centerpiece of the room is my incredible pink bookshelf. This is an IKEA hack that I built myself, so I'm very proud of it. And I love the color. I think it sets the tone for the entire room. It's an incredible focal point, which is not the TV, which I really like. And it lets me display my favorite memories, all of my books that I need to reference for work, which is important functionality. And it also provides additional storage, which again is so important in a small space. But I also love to display travel memories, and I do have pictures of myself on display on my bookshelf in my favorite destinations and travel memories. Somewhat controversial on the internet to have photos of yourself, but I feel like, if I was in a couple, nobody would have a problem with me hanging pictures of myself and my partner, so why not? If you solo travel, ladies, put a picture of yourself up. I also keep mementos from my travels. I travel a lot in Italy because that is where I do my research, and so I love to bring little mementos home and memories of my time there. And one of my favorite little things, I study the history of pharmacy in particular, and this is an antique pharmacy bottle from Italy, so I love just having this little piece of history in my space. So you may have noticed that I love chinoiserie, and it's one of the things that I use throughout the apartment to kind of bring all the spaces together and tie everything together. And again, this is just my love of history and art, and I think chinoiserie is absolutely beautiful. And my aunt actually goes to estate sales all throughout Florida and collects these for me. So I love displaying them around the apartment as vases, as storage items. I have them everywhere, anywhere I can put them basically. And I store lots of little bobs in them. This one actually hides all the extra IKEA pieces that you never know what to do with, so form and function. My living room is also where I work and where I dine. It was really, really important in this space for me to have a place to eat and not eat on my sofa. I think that brings, it sounds simple, but in a studio space, that's really, really important to have like a space to do different things so you don't feel like you're always doing everything from your sofa. And it feels very civilized to have a table to eat your meals at. And then I also, of course, work in this space as well. I do have a standing desk that I love, and my favorite thing, which you can't see because it's discreetly stored, is my walking pad. So I love having a place to also work and walk in the apartment. And then finally, I love in my living room is my bar cart, because this was a DIY that I created myself. And one of my favorite things about DIY is kind of figuring out how to recreate something with unexpected items. So the handle is actually a soap dish, and what gives the scalloped effect on the bar cart are actually pool noodles. So I love the problem solving of DIY and coming up with creative solutions for small space challenges. Also, it gives a lot of great covered storage. Inside of my DIY bar cart, the reality of a small space is that furniture often does double duty. So only one half is dedicated to glassware and the other half is storing lots of things that I need it to, that I won't show you because it's a little bit messy. But I do have some beautiful glassware that I love to store in here. And then I also have a candle obsession. So those are stored down there. I did not set out to have a green and pink apartment, which is why I started adding pops of other color. But as I started designing the space, I fell in love with this wallpaper. I think it is just absolutely stunning, and it's peel and stick, so it's renter friendly. It was incredibly easy to put up, and it was just beautiful. I love the little nod to cherry blossoms being in DC, but not kind of being in that obvious DC way. And then I found the matching drapes, and I think they are just absolutely stunning and kind of bring the room together. And I loved the pink and green together. I thought it was such a beautiful combination, and there's just kind of a hint of pink undertones in the wallpaper, and I wanted to bring that out through the room. So I love high-low. Not everything needs to be expensive and not everything needs to be cheap in your space, but sometimes affordable furniture has its place, and especially in small spaces, it's hard to find a good sofa that will fit the space and be attractive. And so this is actually a very affordable sofa from Amazon, and I replaced the legs to bring it up a little so it didn't look quite so inexpensive, and it elevated it a little bit. And then I added some beautiful velvet pillows, because velvet always elevates things, and some throws to just make it look not so Amazon. So I love a little bit of whimsy. I don't like to take myself or my space too seriously, and I found this disco croissant and I just absolutely love it. And when the light hits it, you get this wonderful like disco effect around the room. So have fun with your decor. And my disco croissant sits on top of my DIY coffee table. So this is actually a console table that I cut down to coffee table height. It's almost impossible to find a very narrow coffee table, but I knew I wanted one for this space for comfort and for functionality. And so all I did is I found this burled wood console table from Target, and I just cut it down with my handy dandy handsaw in my apartment. On the other side of my living room, I have my media console that I also DIY'd. This is a very simple IKEA Besta unit that I painted and added some new hardware to, the legs and the knobs. And then with kind of masking my TV, because TVs aren't cute, but they're a reality of life, I created a gallery wall around it to kind of distract. And again, I just love the mixing of textures and different styles of frames. And I have peppered through here some of my artwork, some historically inspired artwork, and some more images from my travels. So this mirror is my true love in life. I wanted an extra large mirror for the longest time, and I saved up for this one. It was definitely a splurge, but I think it adds so much light and space to a small space. Obviously, an oversized mirror is going to do that. And by putting it in the corner here, I love that from any angle in the apartment, you can see more of the apartment, which really gives that illusion of space. And then it bounces light off of my only source of light along this one wall into the rest of the apartment. So it was definitely an investment, but worth every penny. I love it so much. I think a home really comes alive when it feels like you, and it feels like a place that you want to be in. And so I think it just really needs to reflect you and what makes you happy, while also being functional. I'm really, really big on a space being equally beautiful as it is functional, because you do have to really live in it, and a home should be lived in and functional for you and your life. I don't know if I would consider myself a maximalist. I think other people definitely would. I'm not shy of a lot of items and a lot of color. I don't know that I necessarily kind of subscribe to these categories and labels of design. I think you can mix and match, and you can do what you like. So I think in many ways I'm a maximalist, and then in many ways I take inspiration from lots of other different design genres and periods. I actually love living in a small studio. It feels so cozy. I love being in my apartment. One of my biggest fears moving to DC, I'm from Florida originally, where space is not a premium. You get a really big apartment in Florida. And I was really afraid that it would feel like it was closing in on me and I wouldn't enjoy being at home, because I am a homebody. And I actually think I love it more because it feels so cozy. And by putting the time and effort into making the space really functional and comfortable for me, and honestly, it brings me such joy to just look around the apartment and know that everything is a reflection of me and what I love. It's the perfect space to be in, and I love being in it. And so, yeah, I feel like a lot of renters feel like they can't or shouldn't invest in their apartment, but I think the reality for a lot of people, especially in cities, is that they have to live in an apartment. And it can be your space, and it can become a home, and it's a really great feeling. So this is my bedroom. You're probably wondering where I store all of my clothing, shoes, and accessories, and this is it, on display for everyone to see, like the beautiful works of art that they are. I know for many people, open shelving like this seems like a dusting nightmare, but for me, I love being able to see my clothing. If I can't see it, I don't remember that I have it, and I love getting dressed and kind of in my own open air boutique where I can pull all of my clothes, shoes, and accessories for the day. And so looking at it makes me happy. It does require slightly more dusting, but I think it's totally worth the effort. I also have here one of my DIYs that I did that I'm pretty proud of because I have a headband addiction. It is my love of form and function. I love having something beautiful, but also functions to keep the hair out of my face when I'm working. And so I wear a lot of headbands, and I wanted a system to be able to store my headbands efficiently and beautifully. And so I actually created these out of IKEA spice racks. I changed the hardware to hang them upside down so that it could display and easily hang all of my headbands. So I'm pretty proud of this one. It was a very simple and easy DIY, but really works well. I wouldn't say that I have a favorite headband. I would say I like a statement headband, but I do love when they're jeweled and encrusted or just dramatic in general. They remind me, so this is another callback to kind of my love of history. They remind me of early modern hats and hoods that women would wear, specifically the 16th century French hood. And it's just a beautiful style that I love. So I'd have to say I think my favorite one is this one because this probably most closely resembles a 16th century French hood, but I do love wearing these. It's a little callback to the past in the history of fashion. And you might notice that many of my shoes look the same. And I would say, once again, it's my love of form and function. These are my favorite shoes. They're from Cezanne, but a couple French companies make shoes like this. And I just love that they're slingback because I don't get blisters, but they also have a little bit of heel for height and they come in lots of colors. And I'm a big fan of patent leather because it scuffs less and you have to walk a lot in the city. So you need shoes that are both beautiful and functional. Another thing I'd love to point out about the closet system is that this is great for renters because it is a tension rod system. It is also modular. So all of the pieces come apart and can work in any space and you can arrange it in any way that you want. And so this has come through 3 apartments with me, and it's been in a dozen different styles and arrangements. And so I knew when I moved into this space that I had these components and I could do creative things with them. So on this wall, I went with more of a dresser setup with storage on top. And then on the opposite wall over here that flanks my bed, I decided to do a little bit more hanging storage and some more accessory storage on top. And this gives me a ton of clothing storage, and so I don't have to worry about my shopping habit. So on this side, I have more shoes and purses. You can never have too many purses. I also have my perfume, my daily perfume, so that it's easy to access and spritz on the go. I have one of my all-time favorite Kate Spade novelty bags, some more artwork that I created, and again, just some more storage. I think in a small space, it's really, really important to have both open and closed storage. Open storage is wonderful, but it is open and therefore always on display and you have to keep it tidy. So you also need a fair amount of closed storage. Another thing that I did to really give myself a lot more storage in this space was I lofted my bed. And you're probably thinking a lofted bed is for college students, but anyone can benefit from a lofted bed. I only had to raise it up about 5 inches, and then I was able to hide that with a skirt. And I was able to slide a bunch of rolling boxes underneath to, again, give me more storage, which is especially good for seasonal clothing or things that I don't access a lot that I really need to have storage for, but I don't really need to pull it out every day. So my bed is one of my favorite spaces in my apartment. 1, because I spend a lot of time making it very comfy and cozy because sleep is very important. But 2, it's a really great space to have fun with texture, pattern, and color, which is what I love. My secret is that I have a white duvet and then I love to switch out the pillows and accessories on top of it. And Rifle Paper Co. is one of my favorite companies. They're from my hometown. They're a woman-owned business, and they do a lot of beautiful illustrations, and their book illustrations are my favorite. So both this blanket and this pillow are Rifle Paper Co. And it's just kind of these whimsical little touches that bring me a lot of joy in my space. And then I love playing with texture and pattern to kind of show off these different little details in the space. And you can never have too many pillows on your bed. I know that some people will not agree with that, but I think it's a great way to have fun with texture and pattern and color. And you will never find me without at least 6 pillows on my bed. From here, we have my beautiful hat wall. As much as I love a headband, I also love a hat. And again, form and function, I needed something where I could see what I have, and I could also store them out of the way where they wouldn't get bent or messed up. And I think they're beautiful, so why not display them? And it's really easy for me to grab a hat and go. And so I do love this little hat wall. I know in the design world, a hat wall can be a little controversial, but again, you know, do what works for you and what you love in your space. My favorite hat is definitely this hat. So there's a funny story behind this hat. It probably looks familiar. Gucci makes a gold papier hat like this that I loved for years. I had it. I think I wore it for 6 years. I wore it into the ground. And I was devastated when they released the new model of it. It wasn't the same. They had changed it and it wasn't as good. And I was in this tiny town in the seaside in Italy, and there was a woman there who handmade hats, and I saw this hat hanging across the room, and I asked her about it. And she said she's been making it for years. And I asked her, will she continue to make it? And she promised she would keep making it. So every few years I go to this little town in Italy and I buy one of these hats and I wear it all summer long because it's very important to protect yourself from the sun but still look stylish. So next to my hat wall in my bed, we've got my bedside table, and this is another IKEA hack. This is the basic side table from IKEA that I painted and I added cute little lucite knobs to in the shape of a bow. And you know, I've got the practical stuff like my charging station. I've got a few decorative books and a little holder here. And I also have this lamp, which I really love. I get a lot of questions about this lamp. And again, high-low, I think is really important to think about because a ceramic lamp is a ceramic lamp. You can get them, you know, on clearance somewhere at a flea market, but a lampshade, if it's cheap, looks cheap. So I will often spend all of my budget on the lampshade and then thrift something for the base. And so the base of this is just a thrifted ceramic base that I spray painted pink. And then this lampshade is from House of Hackney, which is an incredible wallpaper and fabric company in the UK that I absolutely love. So in this room, I went with a faux grass cloth peel and stick wallpaper in a nice light shade of pink because I thought it would complement the bookshelf well, which is kind of functioning as the other wall in this room. And again, it's peel and stick, so it's renter friendly. And I just love the little bit of texture that it gives. I wanted a little bit more of a serene space in the bedroom because obviously this is where you come to relax and sleep. So I wasn't going to go with a really big, bold all over pattern, but I thought the texture of the grass cloth had a really nice touch to it. And then I hung this piece of art that I actually created. It's just kind of like a chinoiserie illustration that is based on a historical chinoiserie print. So on this side of the bedroom, I have the rest of my El Varley closet system from IKEA. And as I mentioned before, it has all sorts of different combinations that you can do, which is why I really, really like this system. And I went with kind of maximum storage on this side. So this is the real basis of my closet over here. But I also added some more hidden storage, and I can hang skirts, blazers, dresses, jackets, and shirts, everything over here, no problem. And I'm still able to access it. It's not the most spacious area, but I was able to squeeze it all into the apartment. So I was really happy that I was able to get this in because this is able to hold the bulk of my wardrobe where I can see it, where I can access it. So I am a big believer that your rugs need to be bigger than you think they need to be. Even in a small space, your rugs need to cover the entirety of your room, and the whole rule that your furniture is supposed to be on all the legs of your furniture is supposed to be on your rug. I do live and die by that rule. And it has helped me when working in small spaces to make them feel more balanced and bigger. And also don't be afraid to cut your rugs, especially if you're in a small, weird space. I actually had to cut this rug, don't tell rifle, but I did have to cut it here along the edge of the bookcase in order to get it to fit. Honestly, it works great for the space, and don't be afraid to cut your rugs. So this was kind of an awkward space in the apartment where the bedroom really ended before the living room began. I had my gallery wall, and I wasn't really sure what to do here. I wanted to be careful not to overfill the space, and so I found this stool at Home Goods on clearance, and I kind of just loved the texture and the color. And then I already owned this chinoiserie ginger jar, and so I thought this would be a great way to kind of break up the space. And just the idea is to kind of visually hide the side of this and to transition into the living room space. So I am a historian of early modern Europe, and my area of focus is specifically Italy and the history of science and medicine. And I look at specifically how women collected, produced, and reproduced medical knowledge through early modern recipes. So I look at a lot of really fun and interesting documents written and passed down by women for generations. I take inspiration from everything that I see and come across, but I take a lot of inspiration from just being a historian and looking at historical spaces and places and artwork. And so I love pops of color, I love texture, I love architectural details, and so I try to take those inspirations everywhere I find them, whether it's in the archive or at a museum, into my home. But I try to reinterpret that in kind of a fun, colorful, playful way. So from my bedroom, we have my entryway, which then leads into the bathroom. And the entryway, I really wanted to do something fun with to, again, I think it's really important to separate and delineate spaces in such a small space when you have no rooms to create the feeling of rooms. And so I wanted to create the feeling that this was a separate space. And so I decided to do some painting in here, and I created this really fun scallop. I actually made this scallop with a bowl from the kitchen that I just traced along the wall using a level and traced the top half of it and then painted from the top down. And I really love the way that it turned out. Again, I think it just adds a little bit of fun and whimsy to the space and gives it a distinct feeling. And to match the color, I painted my IKEA shoe storage the same color. You're probably wondering, she has more shoes than what we saw on the shelves, and yes, I do. But this is closed storage because these are the less attractive shoes. So they hide in here. And it's also a place where I can dump my keys and my sunglasses when I get home. And also, of course, I have hooks because one of the biggest hacks in small spaces is hooks. You always need hooks. I added another cute rug into this space for functionality, you know, to just make sure your feet are clean when you enter. And then I did actually add a light up in this space, and this is really interesting. I really just zip tied this to the existing boob light that came in the apartment, and it works great, so. And then from here, you lead into a walk-through, pass-through closet, which is really kind of a workhorse of the apartment and does a lot of serious storage for me. I have my hamper, I have my vacuum cleaner, I have my winter coats in the winter, and I've got cleaning supplies, a year's supply of toilet paper and paper towels, you know, just because we're all scarred from when that happened in the pandemic, and all of my bags. And then that leads straight into my little tiny bathroom. And I really wanted to have fun, or as much fun as I could, with this space. It is an old building, so some of the challenges in this bathroom was that there is no vent. And so I really wanted to do wallpaper, but wallpaper in a bathroom with no vent is a disaster waiting to happen. So I decided to have some fun instead, and I found these thrifted, really cheap, I think they're plastic ornate frames that I took samples of wallpaper and I color matched the best I could with some acrylic paint. And I just painted them to create these kind of fun pops of color on the wall, since I'm not able to add a really fun wallpaper. I actually did retile the floor with peel and stick tile. That is not meant for the floor. The packaging was very clear about that, but I figured I was going to try it, and it's actually working really, really well. So I added a layer of painter's tape and then did the peel and stick tile, and then I did caulk everything, recaulk it myself, and added this cute rug on top. Another thing that I did is I had the tile in here is old. It's seen a lot, it's vintage, and it had that kind of built-in, tiled-in soap dish and toothbrush holder that were pretty unattractive. And so I actually found this floating shelf at my local hardware store, and I was able to carve it out and create a hollow in the back, and I just attached it right to the old soap dish, which kind of now acts as the brackets for this shelf. And this is so much more functional for me than the old soap dish and toothbrush holder. I also just attached a new mirror on top of the old mirror, and I spray painted the light fixture gold. And I actually found these floral acrylic discs, and I cut holes in them to kind of act as a little light feature in the space. My favorite part about the bathroom is this really fun, beautiful shower curtain that I found. I think it just adds a lot of color and texture and interest into this small space that I really wasn't able to do a lot with. So at this point, we're in the front of my apartment, where you have the entryway, my closet, and bathroom, and then around the corner, you just saw my bedroom. But if you follow me, I'll actually take you to where the kitchen is. So once you walk through my living room, at the other end of the apartment is my kitchen. And I had to make the decision if I wanted the bedroom by the front door or by the kitchen. And I hope you agree that I think the front door was the better option. I don't want my bed to smell like what I'm cooking in the kitchen. So I thought that this layout worked better. And I like that the kitchen is not an open concept in this studio. It is kind of walled off in the back of the apartment. And it's a surprisingly good kitchen for this space. But of course, What I didn't like about it was incredibly beige. Countertops are not what I would have picked. The color of the wood is not what I would have picked. So without doing any kind of crazy vinyl coverings of the countertops, because I really don't think that that's super practical and functional, I wanted to see if I could kind of change the tone and color of the kitchen through just adding other colors. And so I added this really fun peel and stick backsplash to this side of the kitchen, and then to this side of the kitchen is where I really had a lot of fun. I added this fun citrus wallpaper, this beadboard and chair rail, and this pop of green, and some floating shelves, again, to display some more beautiful items, and then this cart to add some more functionality. Obviously, there's always an issue of storing pots and pans in small little apartments, and so this was kind of my solution for that. So the floor was one of my favorite solutions because, again, I worried about doing peel and stick tile on a kitchen floor. It just gets so much traction, food, water, everything falls on it, and I really think you need to be able to clean it well. And so I actually found this company that does these vinyl floor, basically carpets or mats that they call them, and they are perfect. And they just had one that happened to be perfect for this space. And so there's no peel and stick, it just lays flat on your existing tile, and I think it gives a great look. It looks like tile, but it's super, super functional and easy to clean, and it covers up the old, not so cute tile perfectly. Another thing that I did to add a little bit more personality and just fun into this space was I have been able to find pastel kitchen appliances, which is not as hard as you might think it is. So I love adding these little touches. And then I did find this pottery, again, kind of a callback to my love of Italy. This one says mangiamo, let's eat. This one says ciao bella, and this one says mangiamo again, which is just super fun and cute. For me, home is my sanctuary. Home is where I go to recharge from the world, where I can be myself and be comfortable. So I know for many people, home is hosting and bringing people into your space, but I think for a lot of people, home is that really personal space where you need to go to recharge and to just get ready for whatever's coming next in life. And so for me, that's really, really important to just have this space to come home to be a homebody, to watch my favorite movies, to work from home when I need to and it's comfortable, to have, my travel memories on display, to have artwork on display, to have my books nearby. All of that just is it's my safe place, it's my happy place, it's my home. Thanks, Homeworthy, for stopping by. This was so much fun to show you around my 480 square foot studio apartment, but it's time for you to go because I have another DIY project waiting. Bye.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Lisa. Welcome to my Chelsea apartment. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name is Lisa Liu. I'm a PR and events consultant here in New York City, and we are currently in my studio apartment in Chelsea. Well, I was living in Greenpoint in Brooklyn about 13 years ago, and I had a roommate. We weren't necessarily jiving very well. So I had confided to a friend that I was looking to move out, and she serendipitously had met with her hairdresser, who happened to be looking for somebody to take over his lease for this rent-stabilized apartment in Chelsea, which is a unicorn of apartment hunting in New York. So I went to see it that night and agreed to take over right away. When I first moved into the apartment, it was really just a functional space for me, and I didn't really see it as somewhere I wanted to spend a lot of time. I moved in and it was very builder white. It was actually more like builder custard. It was this nasty kind of vanilla color everywhere. It was like that for quite a bit of time. I mean, I had some personal touches throughout the apartment, but really in 2020 during COVID and during lockdown was when I was sitting here staring at these ugly walls that I decided to really take matters into my own hands. And I really just spent about 2 or 3 weeks painting, putting up things, buying new furniture, and made it into the space it is today. This is my dining area slash workspace. I have a tiny kitchen, it being a studio apartment, and I actually love to cook, so it was really important to me to have more counter space, which is why I chose a counter height table in order to be able to kind of move between the kitchen and also do some prep over here. It also doubles as my workspace because otherwise I'd be laying in bed doing work or sitting on the couch, which is comfortable but not terribly productive. So this makes me feel like I have a specific space to go to get work done. The table is from CB2, now discontinued unfortunately. And the chairs are from Scandinavian design. And then I have this wall-mounted bar over here, which is one of my favorite pieces. As I mentioned, I think it's really important to take advantage of any wall space you have, just because the square footage is at such a premium in a studio apartment. So I found this on West Elm. I really wanted to, I like to have a little post-work cocktail sometimes. So this was a great solution to having a bar without taking up any extra floor space. As I mentioned, I really love to cook, so I have a bunch of cookbooks that are stored out of the way as well. This is a selection of some of my favorites. There's a vintage cocktail book, a book by Claire Saffitz on desserts, and then actually my friends Jimmy Lee and Yen Vo, who own Madame Vo in the East Village, just came out with a cookbook last year, so that holds the top spot at the moment. So I think one of the challenges with living in a studio is kind of carving out different zones because it's just one big room. So in order to kind of differentiate this as the dining area slash work zone, I wanted to paint it a different color just to make it feel like it has its own space. So now we're moving into the living room. Again, always looking to find storage solutions. So the coffee table is actually a vintage trunk. I inherited that from my sister actually. She was moving and didn't need it any longer. So the trunk is kind of my junk drawer. It holds, my tools, anything that I don't really want out, but that I could eventually need. There's like wrapping paper and random bits and bobs in there. So this is kind of the seating area of the living room. The couch I acquired last year, I want to say, from a vintage seller that I found on Instagram. Before that, I had a love seat that had arms, and it was very upright and not very comfortable, to be honest. So I was on the hunt for a love seat size sofa that didn't have arms and is also aesthetically pleasing. And you would be surprised that all those parameters in one piece of furniture are actually incredibly difficult to find. So I was scrolling Instagram and a post popped up from this seller I follow, and I fell in love with this couch immediately. I kind of thought about it for one day. I asked for the measurements and it would have fit the space perfectly. So I ended up pulling the trigger. The couch came from Miami actually. And then we had to get it up 6 flights of stairs. It was a whole thing, but eventually she made it. She fits perfectly and I love her. The gallery wall is just pieces that I had curated over time. Some of them have meaning, some of them I just like how they look. I have one frame over here that includes some pictures from my travels in Spain. It was one of my favorite trips, so I like kind of remembering that. This image here, I don't remember the artist, I'm sorry, but it's an image of 3 women, which I kind of gravitated to because I have my mom and then I have one sister, and that was my family growing up. So I kind of thought this reminded me of us. This top piece is by a friend of my sister's, Karen Haas. And then there's this piece from this photographer, Tyler Mitchell, over here, which is just so joyful. As soon as anyone walks into the space, they can immediately tell that I live here. My personality is infused throughout this space, and so it feels welcoming and inviting is what I've heard. So I am a PR and events consultant, mostly within the fashion and luxury space. And so I end up working from home probably about 90% of the time. And so having a space that is calm and is really important to me for that reason. And also kind of having created different zones so that I don't feel like I'm working from my bedroom necessarily. That's been really important to kind of my mental space for working as well. I'd never seen myself living in New York, being from kind of a suburban area of Pennsylvania. But once I got here, I fell in love with it, so I can't imagine living anywhere else really. Okay, so now we're moving into my bedroom. I wanted to put some artwork above the bed, but I didn't want it to be necessarily traditional artwork, I guess. So I found these skate decks. One is from Supreme, which is a brand that I love, a New York skate brand everyone knows and loves. And then the other one is of Notorious B.I.G., which is one of my favorite hip hop artists. Bed is a queen size bed. I'd love to be able to fit a king size bed, but alas, here we are. This bed is from IKEA. Again, for me, it's always important to pick furniture that's off the ground, so no platform beds or anything like that. Just to have the option of storage space underneath if needed. The duvet cover is from West Elm. I really like linen bedding, so that's generally what I tend to use. The pillows are kind of sourced from various different places. I think a couple are from Anthropology. So then kind of across from the bed, I don't know that this is very feng shui of me, but some of those principles have to go out the window when you live in a studio apartment. So I have this mirror that I sourced from Urban Outfitters. One thing I like to play around with in the apartment is like different shapes, kind of sculptural pieces. So that's why I really like having an arched mirror. And then there's this travertine side table here from Banana Republic that holds books that I've only half read. And then I have this vintage postmodern pink lamp that I also found from a seller on Instagram, which I really love. Honestly, I love shopping for vintage and like sourcing kind of loved items over, I do a mix, but I think, it's a really great resource to be able to find pieces that are vintage or used because they're so much more unique. When you're walking into like these big box stores, sometimes it feels a little bit devoid of personality. And so you can really find pieces that no one else has. So you can see on the wall here, I've installed these 2 cabinets. Again, beating a dead horse, but always looking for storage solutions. So I bought these from IKEA and had the idea to install them on the wall and up near the ceiling so they're out of the way and they kind of just float into the wall. So most people don't even really notice them at first glance. And that holds all of my off-season wardrobe. I haven't really thought about installing more because honestly, it's just enough. And I think that's one of the lessons that you take from living in a studio apartment is kind of learning to really be intentional about what you bring to the apartment. So like sure, could I use more storage? That just means I'm bringing more things into the apartment that I don't necessarily need. So you kind of learn to pare back. And then this is a dresser that, again, my sister handed down to me. She was moving, so she didn't need this piece any longer. So it's a mid-century dresser that I also really love. I hope she never asks for it back. And then in this corner is my dog Stella's bed. Stella's my best buddy. She's been here for most of the time that I've lived in New York, so she's turning 15 soon. So again, just kind of taking advantage of the wall space to create more storage and a little bit of a vignette opportunity here. I actually am really bad about collecting tchotchkes in that I have too many of them, so I'm always looking for different ways to display them. So I installed these two shelves from West Elm, and yeah, they hold a few of my favorite items. This is actually a portrait of another one of my favorite hip-hop artists, Cameron, and I found this artist, I think online. At the time he was 9 years old, I believe, and his name is Young Lennox, and he had drawn this picture of Cameron. This is like my favorite image of Cameron with the pink fur hoodie and the pink cell phone, so I had to have it. The one next to it is also by Young Lennox, I think, and it's of, again, Biggie. I think funnily, like, there was a delay with the shipping or something, so he just like threw in another piece, and so that's how I got that one. So this is one of my favorite personal photos, is actually of me as a child and my cousin. We're playing with each other, and so my sister actually had this blown up as a birthday gift for me one year, and I love it. I've had to become kind of a Jedi of small space storage tricks over time. One of the things that I suggest for people to remember is to really maximize use of like wall space. My favorite trick was installing these cabinets that I got from IKEA up by the ceiling on the wall, and I use that to store all of my off-season wardrobe. I used to do the thing where you like schlep your winter clothes to your parents' house and then vice versa when the seasons changed, and so I actually installed those cabinets in order to not have to do that, so I just switch out when it gets warmer or colder. The apartment is about 350 square feet in total. It's honestly just an estimate. I've never taken out a measuring tape to measure it. I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but the biggest challenge is definitely finding storage solutions. Okay, so now we're entering the kitchen, which is one of the most divisive topics on the internet. As you can see, the appliances are all kind of miniature. So while I have a 4-top stove, it's a little bit smaller than your regular range. Refrigerator is smaller than your average refrigerator, but it all works. I've had to be a little bit clever about storage here as well. So I really love Yamazaki Home, I believe it is, for all these kind of little storage solutions that they have. These are magnetic, so they stick to the side of the refrigerator, and then I can have all my spices and oils and whatnot handy when I am cooking. And then thankfully these cabinets are pretty spacious, and then I have this shelving on the side as well where I can kind of keep some of my other glassware and dishware. It being a New York apartment with kind of limited storage, I do kind of take advantage of the space on top of the cabinets as well to store pots that I don't use as often, and there's a few hidden inside the oven as well. The kitchen cabinets were kind of that builder custard color that I talked about earlier. During COVID, I was just staring at the kitchen, which was really the bane of my existence of this apartment. So I one day just decided to kind of cover over all of that color. So I painted the cabinet doors with this green color from backdrop. I also installed these knobs that I purchased from Restoration Hardware, I want to say. And then, so that provides a lot more kind of depth and character to the kitchen. And then I covered over the ugly yellow tile with subway tile, and then covered the counters, which were also yellow, with just peel and stick. Actually, I had done the peel and stick tile back in 2020. So pro tip, it doesn't last forever. So it had started to peel up and turn yellow over time. So I actually just redid the peel and stick 2 nights ago for this house tour, so you're welcome. So this is the entryway. Most people have like a mudroom where you can drop coats and things. So this is my mudroom. I put in these hooks on the wall to be able to put my bags, my hat, dog items. I'll throw my leash up there. And then I also installed this piece from Yamazaki as well, so I can throw my keys, my pepper spray for going out in New York at night, and then my sunglasses up there. And then the storage above the door was actually there when I moved in, so it's a really great area to keep cookbooks that I don't use quite as often, but I can pull them out when needed. Some additional dishware that I would use when I'm entertaining, but not necessarily things that you use on a daily basis. So I actually lucked out with a decent amount of closet space for New York City. So I have these 2 tall closets here, which look small, but since they're floor to ceiling, there's actually quite a bit of storage in there. So this is the bathroom. I actually added this molding to the door to add a little bit of interest and detail to that, and I painted it as well. The artwork above the door is by Sarah Baba, which is an artist that I really love. And I like that it's someone diving into a body of water, which feels kind of very appropriate for a bathroom. And this is the bathroom, which is one of my favorite spaces in the apartment that I kind of redid also during COVID. I added these, the tile was really dingy and no amount of cleaning could ever have cleaned it up before. So I just covered it with these vinyl decals that kind of mimic tiles as well. And then this other artwork, again, people in water. And then on the wall here is some additional storage, these 2 shelves, and they hold all of my beauty items and products, which I unfortunately am never able to edit down. So that's really useful for that. One thing about pre-war New York City apartments particularly is that the lighting fixtures can be really ugly. I think this was literally a bare bulb when I moved in. So I bought this light fixture from West Elm. I like that it's like a really sculptural piece with like the pleating, which kind of makes it feel like an art piece almost. Home for me means calmness and a sense of being able to let everything go when you walk in those doors. So especially living in New York City, there's a lot of outside noise, just a general kind of hecticness to the city. And so I really love that feeling of walking in and kind of shedding all of that and just feeling secure and safe and comfortable.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Lindsay. Welcome to my home in Los Angeles. I'm so excited to show you around. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Lindsay O'Brien. I am the art and home merchandiser at Etsy, and welcome to my 450 square foot apartment in Los Angeles, California. So I've been living in LA for 5 years, and I moved out here from New York. First landed in a teeny tiny apartment while I got my footing, and then found a place that had sunlight, which coming from New York was like the ultimate luxury. And so I was there for 2 years, but then I started to realize that other people in LA had outdoor space and apartments that really felt like homes. So I started my hunt. I made a wish list of everything I was looking for. I really wanted something that was like a little bungalow or a standalone structure. Definitely lots of sunlight, something that just felt very LA and something that I couldn't get back in New York. So I had my wish list. I was searching all of the websites for about 6 months and started to give up. And then one day I found this listing on Craigslist. The photos were terrible, but something about it just made me want to give it a chance. When I came to see this place, I realized that it was my wish list and more. I wanted a bathtub, and not only does it have a tub, it has a green clawfoot tub. It was just everything on my list. So I immediately fell in love, and I wrote a letter to the landlord and basically begged for this apartment because I knew after looking for 6 months that it was really special and it felt like home. So I moved in 3 years ago and have had a lot of fun just kind of decorating it and making it my own. So when I first moved into this apartment, I really wanted to keep it super minimal and have the space speak for itself. I have a really beautiful view, and this is the first place that I've lived in where the bones of the apartment were really special and the finishes and everything was exactly in my taste. So I just wanted to let that shine a little bit. And then after living here for about a year, I started to realize that I like color. So I started bringing in some color and making it feel more my own and bringing in some character. I feel like that it also coincided with a time where I got really into going to flea markets and digging for treasures and collecting things. I've always loved doing that, but moving to California gave me a lot more access to all of our amazing flea markets. So going to all of those and bringing home treasures and finding homes for them in my space has been really fun and has really informed a lot of how I've decorated the space. Welcome to my home. When you first walk in, I have this dining table right here. This originally was not part of the plan. I had the dining table tucked into this little nook over here, and I was trying to make it a kitchen moment. But I did a call with an interior designer, and she recommended just plopping it right in the center of the space to make it more of a moment and have it be an actual statement, a table that people can sit around, as opposed to something that's tucked away and kind of only half done half-heartedly. So I put this table here, and now it's a place where I actually want to sit and have my meals. I work from here, so it's nice to have it be anchored in the space as opposed to just kind of tucked away. I originally had a glass table because living in a small space, I had a lot of glass furniture. In my mind, that made it take up less space and felt like less of a commitment in a small space. But what I found was when I actually got something that was substantial, it made it more of a moment, and it kind of anchored the space a little bit more than something floating in the middle of it. So I got this amazing travertine table from a local vintage dealer, and it's the perfect size for the space. I really could not go any bigger. And I collected these chairs. I have 2 different sets. So this set I got from Etsy actually, and they were shipped from Denmark. And then I got this pair off of Facebook Marketplace. So I love the mix of the stone and the wood. This picture is really special. My friend Megan curates vintage items, and I got this from her. When the light hits it just right, it becomes a disco ball, which is really fun, and everything reflects off of it. I love this candelabra. It's a little mermaid. I got this when I went to Oaxaca for my friend's wedding. We visited the workshop of Jose Garcia Antonio, who is a blind potter, and every day he sculpts the face of his wife. So here she is. They met on the beach originally, so a lot of times he depicts her as a mermaid, and I just thought it was really special and really fun. I made this stool. A lot of the furniture in my space is vintage. This is one of the only handmade pieces, and it feels really special that I made it myself. I took a woodworking class. Would love to do more of it, but I love having things in my space that I've made or that friends have made. So slowly on a mission to kind of make everything fit the bill for that. I have this curtain that my friend Amy made. She sewed it all by hand and it's made from vintage textiles. I think some of them in here were actually her grandmother's, which is really special. And I use it to just kind of hide away my TV. I have this built in here that is original to the space. The space was built in the 1920s, so there's some cool original details like that. So living in a small space, everything needs to serve double duty, and I really wanted a desk and a place to do my crafts. I make jewelry, but I didn't want to have it just out in the center of the room and have my mess out all the time. So this cabinet actually turns into a desk, which is really fun. I got this off Facebook Marketplace. It's called a Magic Box desk. And it just transforms into a little workspace. Sometimes I'll work from here at my computer, but I mostly just use it for crafts. So I have all of my tools stored in here, all of my supplies, and it's really fun because it allows me to be able to work on a project, make a little bit of a mess, and then tuck it away like it never happened. And in here, this is cute. I actually have up on the wall of the desk here one of my original business cards from when I made jewelry in high school. And then this necklace was one of the first pieces of jewelry that I made. So I love just keeping it in here. It's really fun and a nice reminder. I love this lamp. I got it off of Etsy. It's vintage. I think the bulbs are really cool. It's like a fun, modern, space age lamp. And it's a nice sort of alternative to your standard desk lamp. This is a fun piece of art that I got from a painter off of Etsy as well. His name is Hank Lumen, and he does this, what he calls weird Western sort of design of art. And then this is a piece that I got at a flea market. It's actually a Polaroid transfer print. I also shoot photography and have recently been wanting to get some of my pieces framed. So I loved the look of this with the big mat, and I've kind of been mimicking that a little bit with some of my own pieces. And then this kind of looks like a kindergartner made it. I did. I've had some fun playing around with ceramics over the years. I'm definitely no professional potter, but it's fun to use your hands and make something and experiment. It's definitely challenging living in such a small space. I don't even know if you would call it a one bedroom or a studio, but it's all kind of one space, and 450 square feet is not that much to work with. I got lucky that it's laid out in a very efficient way, but it means that everything I bring into my space has a job to do and has to serve some sort of function. I don't have a lot of room for extra side tables or odds and ends, so I've had to be very intentional with everything I've brought in. A lot of things serve double duty. My bed has a ton of storage underneath. I've really had to maximize space. So all of my storage is also decorative. All of my furniture, I've tried to make it so that's decorative looking too. But yeah, everything has to serve double duty in a space this small. 3 words that would describe my personal style are collected, storied, and playful. I really love for all of the items in my home to tell a story, whether it be from something that I collected along the way, either traveling or at a flea market, something that just caught my eye. I love to imagine the story of what some of these pieces might have lived, or I also have a lot of handmade pieces from friends or things that I've made. So I love being able to point to anything in my apartment and say exactly where it came from and why it's special to me. And then playful is something that my home hasn't always been, but I've had a lot of joy lately in trying to embrace that and not take it so seriously. And if I find something that's fun and colorful, figuring out a way to work it in, just trying to think of how I can make something work if it's something that truly brings me joy. So come on into the living room. I have this vintage daybed that I got from a local furniture dealer. I was having a lot of trouble finding a couch that fit the space. It's quite narrow. So a daybed ended up being an interesting solution that I hadn't thought of at first. And I love this one. I love the wood details. One thing that I've been trying to do in this space is bring in some more like wood, warm, earthy elements, and kind of demodernize it a little bit. So I love this. And then I recently got this rug. I'm still learning to live with it. I've had it for like a week now, and I'm not quite sure if the colors fit the space, but it's been fun to kind of experiment with something new in here. I love the way it looks with this chair. This chair is one of my greatest flea market purchases. I love this olive leather color. It's very comfortable. I love sitting here with a book. This coffee table was also another flea market purchase. It has an inlaid brass top that has this etching into it, but I love that it has like the double layer so I can stash some books underneath and then have my tchotchkes on display up top. I also really love the bow detail on the side of it. I have a lot of things from the flea market, and it can definitely be overwhelming when you get to the flea market. There's tons of things to choose from and so many interesting things that catch your eye. So I think the important thing to do is go in with kind of a sense of what you're looking for, what your style is, so that you can appreciate things along the way, but recognize when they aren't your style or won't match your space and keep moving. But my number one trick is to get there early. I get there at the crack of dawn, and sometimes it's not even light out yet, but that's how I get all of the good stuff. Most of the things on the shelf are from the flea market. All of these ceramics pieces. This is one of my favorites. It's really beautiful. I love this sort of rounded bottom. It just kind of balances there. Although you do have to be careful with the earthquakes. That one gets a little roly-poly. This is also a good one. I love the shape of it. This is the first time that I've really had a bookshelf to play with, which has been fun to experiment with how to style it. This one is especially interesting because it goes through to the other room, so you see it from both sides. So it feels more important in that way because it's kind of the center space of the room. So I try to keep it balanced when I'm styling it and kind of pay attention to the weight of things and what kind of space they're taking up. I try to pick something to start with as an anchor, like for example, books, and kind of spread them out on the shelves and then layer things on top of it. And I think it's definitely trial and error. I move things around a lot and just kind of play around with what looks good. It's also a fun way to freshen up the space, bring in new pieces, and just change around the order of them. And it can help make the space look fresh and feel different. This is another flea market find, no surprise. That's one of my favorite things about collecting vintage art is just the level of detail and craftsmanship in some of these pieces. It's so rare to buy a new piece of art now and have it framed in such a way. So the flea market is definitely one of my favorite places to find art. You can get something like this for, I think I paid like $15 or $20 for it. Really great way to furnish your space and decorate your walls. I've been wanting to experiment with bringing different types of woven textiles into the space. I've also been debating reupholstering the sofa in some sort of pattern, which I think could be fun. I'm a big fan of 70s interior design, so I feel like this sort of pattern matched with the colors is kind of starting to give that feel. So I might just lean in all the way and do something crazy with the sofa. And then these curtain rod holders are really fun. I got the holders themselves off of Etsy. They're solid blocks of wood, and then I just paired them with a dowel from the hardware store. Like I said, I've been wanting to figure out more ways to bring wood into the space, so I really wanted a wooden pole up there as opposed to something metal and a little bit colder. And this pendant light is a vintage one that I had gotten off of Etsy. It is a vintage Italian lamp by way of a seller in Denmark. I love the little pop of color that it gives. It's a really nice blush pink and a really fun way to customize the space and take the sort of generic light that was there before and replace it with something that feels aligned with the rest of the room. So my first job out of college was working in fashion. I worked for Perry Ellis and Tory Burch. I was doing fashion merchandising. And then I got the opportunity to work for Etsy, which had always been my dream company to work for. I started an Etsy shop back when I was in high school. I was selling photography and jewelry. I love the opportunity to get to help other people, other makers put their creations out into the world and help other people discover them. And in my role, I'm primarily looking through everything on Etsy, finding the best of the best and surfacing that up to all of our shoppers. So I know all the tips and tricks. I love digging through everything, and a lot of my home is decorated with Etsy, and I'm constantly impressed by all of the treasures that I find on a daily basis. So coming into the bedroom, it is small, but it is just big enough to fit a bed and a dresser, which is the most important thing. And I love that it is just separate enough from the rest of the apartment that it doesn't feel so much like a studio. This feels like its own unique space. Although I do love that when you walk in the front door, you can see this, you can see all the way through, you could see the pop of green from the bedding and the artwork. So when I first moved into this space, my instinct was to keep it all super neutral. I had white bedding. I didn't want to commit to anything too crazy in here, knowing that it was the first thing you see when you walk in the door. However, I decided to just mix it up, go for a bold color in here, changed out the bedding, and it completely transformed the space. So the bedding paired with this painting actually kind of became the inspiration for a lot of the color palette of the apartment. And I've had a lot of fun taking what originally was just kind of like a plain, boring, non-committal space and bringing the color from here through the rest of the house. The bedside table is just from Urban Outfitters, but I love this lamp. The base is vintage from Etsy, and I got this custom shade to match. I've been really having fun with stripes. I have these and then the stripes on the bedding. I really love this dish that I have on the bedside table. It is vintage that I got in Mexico City with some etched butterflies. But it was very important to me to be able to fit at least one bedside table in here. The dream would be two, not room for one over there, but I have everything I need in here. And then the bed does lift up and I can store things underneath, which is key because this is my only closet in the entire apartment. This painting is one of my favorite flea market finds, my favorite piece of art. It's very simple, but I love the colors and I love that's kind of like tie-dye, bit of like a molten abstract look. My friend Casey is building me a frame for it, which I'm very excited about. This pendant light is something that I swapped out. One of my favorite things to do when you're renting an apartment is to swap out the light fixtures. I think it's a really easy way to customize the space and make it feel your own. Of course, hanging over the bed, I didn't want anything too heavy, so this is just a handmade linen pendant from Etsy. This is a vintage dresser that I got from a dealer off of Instagram during the height of the pandemic, and I love how big the mirror is, and even more special is that it reflects the view over my bed, the mountains behind me. So it's the first thing I see when I wake up in the morning, and I can always tell the weather just by kind of peeking in the mirror and see what it's doing outside. And then on the dresser, I have a lot of sort of odds and ends that I've collected. This lamp is incredible. It's vintage from Etsy, and I've been using it to kind of store some of my jewelry. I was struggling to find a necklace holder that I liked, and one day I started just kind of like tossing things up there and liked the way that it looked. It's not the best way to store your jewelry or your silver, but it gets the job done. And then one thing that's special to me is I don't have a lot of like framed family portraits or anything like that in my house, but I have a lot of little things that remind me of my family and friends. A lot of them are housed here. So for example, this is something that my grandma had gotten on a trip to Arizona. So this was hers. And then this dish here with my other grandmothers. So I have something from each of them there. I have more pieces from them scattered around the house. And then this is where I have kind of some photos. I have a shell shaped like an L that my parents found beachcombing for me. So this is kind of my like ode to friends and family here, and just nice reminders to think of them on a daily basis, even though I don't have photos necessarily. Next, I'll take you into the bathroom. Might sound crazy, but this is one of my favorite rooms in the house. Well, the whole place is only one room, but this is one of my favorite spaces in the house, and it was one of the main reasons why I fell in love with this apartment. I could not believe my eyes when I was touring the space and I opened the door and saw that there was a green clawfoot tub. I probably wouldn't have chosen a green tub for myself if I had to pick one out, but I feel like that's what makes it more fun, is that I have it and I love it, and it's been like such a nice playful surprise every time I open the door, and anytime I have guests come over, I'm always like, you have to check out the tub. It's my favorite part of the house. So that's my favorite thing about the bathroom. One of my favorite things about the house. But I also love all of the built-ins in here. They're really thoughtful for such a small space. I have plenty of storage, a lot of great built-ins here. And then I love this set of ceramic little storage containers. I got these at a garage sale recently. They're all handmade. I think they're such an incredible color, and they kind of go with the whole color palette in here with the bright green tub and the towels. And it's nice to just have something cute to store all of my functional items in. I just have like cotton balls and things like that. I was working with this artist, Leah Gorin, and she offered to paint something for me. So I gave her one of my photographs. It's a beach in Italy. And I thought it was really cool to have a painted version of a photo that I took. And it goes with the colors really nicely in the space here. I would say my favorite thing about my apartment is that while it's small, it feels like a home. This is the first place that I've lived in that feels like a house and not just a box apartment somewhere. I love that I have a view, I have sunlight. It feels like me in a way that a lot of the apartments I've lived in haven't before, because I was just kind of in a place that had maybe like, I don't know, terrible tiling in the kitchen or things I couldn't change. And I'm happy that I found a place that just feels so me, and that I walked into it and immediately felt like home. The best compliment that somebody could give me about my space is honestly just walking in and being drawn to something and wanting to know more about it. So I think my favorite part of my space is everything that I've filled it with. I love collecting things, and so I really love when somebody comes in and something catches their eye and they're like, oh, where'd you get that? Or what's this? I love telling the stories of all of the objects. And I guess the other compliment is just, I would love for people to walk in and tell me that the space feels like me. So now we're heading into the kitchen, and right when you enter, we have this built-in here at the end of the counter. Really fun place to store all of my knickknacks. I have tons of pottery that I got from flea markets, some pieces that friends have made. My favorite thing is this little boot here. I worked in fashion. One of my first jobs was at Tory Burch, and part of my role was I got to name the shoes. So I named a little boot the Lindsay booty, and my friend Christine is a really amazing ceramicist, and she made a model of it for me, which I think is just a fun memento to have. I don't have the shoe anymore, but I have this as a reminder. This is just one of my favorite pieces. It's small, but it's a really beautiful piece of Japanese pottery. I love the color of it. It's really nice. And then lots of incense. So now coming into the kitchen, for a 450 square foot apartment, this is somehow the biggest kitchen that I've ever had in an apartment. The whole place is just laid out really efficiently. So I love having the space, especially first thing in the morning. The light comes in from out here. I'm a big coffee girl, so I have my coffee station, and it's just a really nice place to wake up and start my day. The kitchen is very modern, and I've been on a mission to cozy it up a little bit. So I started adding some art. I have this oil painting here. I got this at a garage sale in Palm Springs. I was out on a bike ride and saw it on the side of the road. So then I rode my bike back with this kind of over my shoulder, which I feel like is how all great thrifting situations happen. And then I added this piece of art over here, which I Also got at a flea market and had framed. This is one of my favorite pieces. Up close, it doesn't really look like anything, but when you take a step back, you kind of realize that it's a sketch of a stovetop, like a little coffee pot on it. So it fits the kitchen space very well. And this piece of art here is one of my favorites. It's the same artist who did the one that's over my desk. It's a Polaroid transfer, but it's this man in Florence reading the newspaper on his balcony. And it feels special to me because I studied abroad in Florence. It's a city that has a lot of meaning for me. And it's the city where I first kind of discovered my love for photography. And I also just love Italian food. So the idea of having something Italy related in my kitchen is really fun for me. On that Italian theme with my Italian Nonna, I have a chicken parm license plate next to it, which is my favorite food. This is a piece of ceramics from a local artist, and just a really fun sort of touch to have in the kitchen. It's also resting on one of my favorite thrifted purchases. Got this at the flea market, and I just love the glaze of it. It looks like tie-dye, which is really cool. Having open shelving is tough because everything kind of needs to look a little bit nice. I don't have a space to really hide anything away. I love collecting items. I love the idea of having them on display. I love collecting things for serving and hosting. I have tons and tons of ceramics, lots of mugs. This is my old coffee shop in Brooklyn, so I love having this as a memento. I have some little bowls that I made. Again, another attempted ceramics project. I have these curtains here that I've added, which I feel like give a nice little cozy cottage rustic vibe. I got these off of Etsy, and I love the way that they kind of roll up and tie with a little bow. Adding a runner to the kitchen was another way I cozied up the space. This one is vintage from Etsy. I love the design of it. I love the flowers. I thought it was pretty unique, and it's nice to just kind of warm up the wood and the concrete a little bit. My favorite thing in the kitchen is this vintage casserole dish. It is an aluminum cast casserole dish by artist Don Drum. This piece in particular is stamped 1967, and you can actually cook with it. It's functional, but I just thought it was such a cool work of art. I'm not cooking a lot of casseroles, but I love having this on my stovetop. I think it's a fun piece of art, and I love having it on display instead of hiding it away. That's kind of how I feel about most of the things on my shelf. I feel like I've found a lot of treasures, and the open shelving lets me kind of put them on display and give them their chance to shine. Even if I'm not using them on a daily basis, I love just looking at all of them. I could count on one hand the amount of times I've actually used these espresso mugs, but they're also one of my favorite things that I own. I just think they're really beautiful. You may be wondering where my refrigerator is. I actually have two mini fridges here. This is a washer and dryer. So this is a fun challenge of a studio apartment, is that, you know, sometimes you get creative, and I have to be very selective with my groceries that I bring in here. So I have a beverage fridge and a food fridge. There's a little freezer in each of them. So one of the selling points of the space was definitely this patio. I had been craving outdoor space in LA, and I'm so happy to have a place to be able to come out, drink my morning coffee, entertain, sit and read a book. So I'm very grateful to have this space out here. The word home means to me just some place where you can be authentically yourself and feel yourself and be comfortable and look around and kind of like let out that sigh and just be comfortable and know that you're home and you're in your safe place. And I think comfort is like the main word that comes to mind. Homeworthy, it's been so much fun showing you around. Thank you so much for coming, but now I gotta get back to work. Bye.
Hello, Homeworthy. I'm Natalie. Welcome to my Upper East Side apartment. Come on in.
Hi, I'm Natalie Aldridge. I'm an interior designer and artist based in New York City. I'm here in my Upper East Side apartment. I can't wait to show you around. My apartment is 500 square feet, so it's a little tight, but I make it work and I absolutely love it. So I originally came from Wisconsin. I was born and raised just outside of Milwaukee. And I grew up loving New York and traveling a lot with my father, and I knew as soon as I could I would move to New York. So at 18 I moved to New York City and I attended Parsons School of Design, where I studied both interior design and business. And I've been here ever since, and I absolutely love living in New York. Of course it's trying, but I can't imagine living anywhere else. And I've lived mostly on the Upper East Side. I love Uptown. I feel very at home here. It feels very old school and old New York. That's what I love about New York, and that sort of like old swan era of 1950s, 60s is what draws me to the Upper East Side. So we are in my foyer, my very narrow foyer, which is also a gallery wall space. And I have a few things that I've done. This is one of my paintings. And I'd like to point out that it's colonial men, and one of them is wearing Crocs. So this is actually a wallpaper sample that I got from the showroom. I just swiped one out because I knew I wanted to frame it. So I just went in and I need a sample of XYZ and cut it out. This is an old watercolor that I found on eBay actually. I grew up playing tennis and I was a very active tennis player throughout high school. I played on varsity tennis team and I don't play anymore, so this is my homage to tennis. And this is like one of my favorite drawings, and some of these things actually don't have any meaning to them. I just absolutely love them, and I found them, I think this cost me like $5, and I just think it's so great. And this is by one of my favorite photographers. It's of an abandoned palace in Eastern Europe. And I just think it's so beautiful. I absolutely adore abandoned spaces. I think they're so beautiful, the way things decay and sort of add to the space. I just adore it. My Upper East Side apartment is 500 square feet, and it is also rental. So I moved into the space with your typical rental light fixtures and painting and woodwork and finishes like that. But even so, I like to invest in my space and make it my own, and particularly invest in furnishings and other pieces I know I'll have with me for a long time. So that way, when I eventually get into a space that I can really make my own and do all of the interior work, I'll still have all those beautiful things I've collected with me throughout the years. My favorite thing about this apartment has to be the light. I feel like that's a little bit of a cliche thing to say, but it really is a sunny apartment, and it brings so much joy and happiness into the space and feels like a breath of fresh air waking up in the morning and hanging out in the space. I feel like is really nice versus, in a small apartment, it could be very cramped if you didn't have a lot of space and light to move around in. So I also love this apartment because I adore my building. It is a family building, and there's lots of old people that live in this building too, which I absolutely love. I have such an affinity for old people. So I try to make friends with all the old people in my building, and I know most of them now. And I love to talk to them. They all hang out with the doorman downstairs, and it's a lot of fun. It makes you feel like you're part of a community. So now we're going into the entire apartment. So this is my living room, my bedroom, my dining room, and my desk area, my office. I mean, it's a small apartment, so I really have to make do and prioritize each space. But it works really well. I don't feel like it's that small. It really, it's like kind of compartmentalized, I suppose, so it works. So they're lithographs of fountains in Rome. So this woman on Facebook Marketplace was selling them for $50. And it was like a 20-something-year-old woman, and she was trying to get rid of her mother's stuff. And so she met me on the corner of like 65th and Park with them stacked up, and I gave her $50. And then I did some research on them afterwards, and they're worth quite a bit of money. So I recovered this chair as well myself, and this probably took me 20 minutes to do. I mean, it's not fancy in any way. It's not complicated, but I think it looks pretty nice. And it's a Schumacher fabric that I absolutely love. And it's kind of like the reason why I like it is because it's kind of a polka dot, but not really. It's a little like eye catty Oh, and this chair, this came out of my basement in my childhood home, and I spray painted it during COVID in the backyard. So this etagere is actually based off of a French designer from the 50s, Maison Jansen, I think it's called. And I absolutely love it. It's a very good dupe of it, this actually was made in the 50s, but it was like a replica during that time. So I like to store all my books that I like to collect. I collect a lot of coffee table books and things like that, and little tchotchkes. And my friends always think these are so funny. We go out to dinner and I have this like weird habit of swiping reserved signs. They have no purpose, and they're like this one is really disgusting, but I don't know why I love it. And this is just a little bust that I got at the Soane Museum in London. That's another place I love to shop for things, is museum stores. You can find really interesting things that you're not going to find anywhere else. Matches, oh my gosh, I have so many matches. This is just like a small part of my collection. It's mainly because I love the designs of them and I love looking at all the colors and the fonts and whatnot. But I also remember every single one I get, so it also is a nice way to, like make memories more physical, I guess, and tangible. These are little blocks that this artist in Venice makes, and he actually makes these huge puzzle pieces. And I was there with my father just a few months ago, and he gave these to me actually, and they're all landmarks in Venice. So like this is La Fenice Opera House. So I actually found this sofa on Apartment Deco. It happened to be in a really great navy velvet fabric, so I decided to just make it work, and it was a perfect size too. And I added the fringe because the legs are really awful. So I love fringe anyway, so it worked out well. I didn't have a lot of space for big chairs or ottomans or anything like that. So the furniture is very proportionate to the apartment. The chairs are small. I have a little garden stool for sitting on and relatively small cocktail table. But it works really well, and it's actually perfect for entertaining just a small group of people. So this chair I found online for maybe $400, and I recovered it myself in a silk moire fabric I found online. And I wouldn't advise shopping online for fabric, but it sometimes works out, such as in this case. I love this fabric. You can't see at a distance, but it actually has like that moire wood grainy fabric texture. And then this is actually antique Japanese fabric that I had a woman online make into a pillow for me. And it turned out really well. I love it. And it's the type of chair too that I could take with me and have it completely redone at some point, which I love. I love having multiple lives to a piece of furniture. The pillows I had made in Turkey, and this one, like a woman in the Midwest made this for me. These are also both antique side tables that I found. My best friend actually found this one for me at an estate sale for $30, and it's actually a music box. So I'm using it right now as a side table, but if you take the lid up, it actually plays music, which is really fun. Which is actually kind of sad that I don't use it for this purpose because it's really fun, but I needed a side table, so it has this like great inlay on it, and then if you lift it up, it actually plays music. And it has a key too, so I mean, I could be storing my valuables in it. I actually really love living in a small space because I find it to be very cozy, and I actually love entertaining in a small space because it's very intimate, and I only like entertaining with a small group of people anyways, so it's actually a perfect fit. And I love to feel like I'm encapsulated in all of my stuff, and that it's just my own little space. I don't need a lot of space for myself. I'm one person, so it works out well for me. So now we can step into the bedroom, and this bed I've had for a really long time, and it's worked really well in every space. And I mean, it's nothing fancy or special. I'd love to have like a big, I don't know, big 4-poster bed with a canopy or something, but that's not ideal for this space. So I make it work, and I love it. This pillow's from Liberty in London. I love that, like the sort of Venetian marbleization of it. My desk, I kind of do everything at my desk. I do a lot of my artwork. I don't work from home anymore, but sometimes I do work here. This, I hated the hardware on here, so I just found this in an antique shop and replaced this and then hung a tassel from it. Make it a little nicer. And then I have a lot of my sort of like pencils and pens and paintbrushes and things that I use, and I am an interior designer after all, so I have a measure, of course, a scale. So all of these containers that house my pens and pencils are actually candle holders, and I boil water after I'm finished with the candle and let the wax melt out and clean the jar out, and they're perfectly nice glass pieces. I don't want to get rid of them, especially the diptyque ones. They're so cute. So now we're going into my dining room, which obviously I'm only entertaining 2 people, I guess, or myself and one other person, which I actually don't do very often. I don't have dinner parties here because I don't really cook. But I also use this for work sometimes and doing artwork because it's a bigger space than my desk. So I have a lot of my like micron pens, a notebook, some books. Oh, and this, I love this little lamp. It turns on the bottom. It's, it's practical, but it's also cute, so. And then I have this print here I absolutely adore. So I bought this over the summer in Lake Como. I was in Leno, which is a tiny town on the lake, and this old man was selling prints from newspapers and things for like the 20s and 30s. So I brought it back with me and had it framed. When I moved in here, there was absolutely no drapery, blinds, nothing. So I found this rod, and as far as like an inexpensive non-custom rod goes, I think this one's does the trick nicely. And then I found these at Restoration Hardware actually, which it's not ideal. I would love custom drapery, but not in the budget at the moment. And then to make them look a little bit more custom, I found this rickrack tape and just hot glued it on myself. So this is my Tibetan tiger rug. I had this made in India. I absolutely love him. Maybe he should have a name though. I haven't named him yet. I just like it does, I don't know, it's like a fun thing and it's cozy to step out of bed onto a rug. So he's great. I love him. And then I have my dresser. This is an antique dresser that I found for I think like $300 or $400 and just cleaned it up a bit, and it's perfect. So I actually stole this from my office because I loved it so much. We got this from a vendor who specializes in plaster, and they sent us this as a sample of what they can do, but it's so beautiful. It has a little frog on it and lily pads, so I guess that's why we're missing plaster samples now from the office, but I love it. And then I have more of my matches, and to be a little like crunchy, I have my crystals here. And my shells. I actually found these. These are all from the river in the back of my house where I grew up. So now we are in my little kitchen, which does the trick because I don't do that much cooking anyways. Just enough to get me by and prep for parties. I don't have that much counter space, so I mean, it's really not my fault. But I actually really like this space. There's a few nice areas to, show my tchotchkes. My favorite part is actually the refrigerator. I kind of use it as a canvas, and I buy these clips on Amazon, and I absolutely love them. I'm always changing out what I have on here. I like to keep notes too that make me happy that people have sent me. And this is actually one of my drawings, which I did on like just a loose piece of cardboard with a marker. Yeah, I keep a lot of like this. My dad sent me a package once, and he just put this on like an index card. He said, "Hi, Natalie," which I thought was so funny. And I don't know why, I've just like kept it for years now. This girl here, I actually painted this with watercolor, and most of my art happens very randomly and it doesn't take me much time. This probably took me like 20 minutes. And I really like her. So her hair is actually a bush or maybe a forest. I don't know. It's funny because I feel like my personal style is very different than what I do for my work. Usually when you're working with the clients, it's very planned and it's very organized as much as it can be. But in my personal sense, it's far less so. I feel like I'm constantly finding things and just putting together what I love versus planning. And I don't like things in my own life to be too decorated or too planned or too perfect. I like a little bit of quirkiness and found objects, whether it's expensive or just found at a flea market, wherever it may be. I just like to collect my space and make it feel like something that was found rather than decorated. I find things all over the world, honestly. I will find things in some little junk shop in Greece, or in a flea market in New York, or on Cherish or eBay even. Sometimes I'm gifted things, or I like swipe things from a restaurant, and I just, it makes its way into my apartment somehow, and everything that you find, I feel like, works itself in. So this is my first closet, which is bursting at the seams, as storage is an issue here. But I thought I would show you a few of my fun things that I have. So this is probably my favorite hat that I own. It's like a lampshade, basically. And I absolutely adore it. I think it's the most fun thing. So I collect little box purses, and particularly from this company called Dorset Rex. They were around in the 50s in New York. And I have been trying to grab as many of these up on eBay as I can, because now people are catching on, so the prices are going up. But I love them because they're like a fun woven metal, and they always have these like lucite handles and lucite tops. And they're so much fun. I just adore them. I use them when I go out to parties. I use them with just jeans, running around on a weekend, something like that. I just adore them. Here's some of my other little antique bags. This one I found like a random antique store outside of Chicago, and I absolutely adore it. It's little, it reminds me of a lunchbox, and some people ask me if it's my lunchbox. I'm like, yes, I absolutely carry my lunch around with me everywhere. And the fun part about it too is it has a little mirror in it, which I don't know if is very practical, but it's fun. And then this one, my best friend actually found this for me. And of course it doesn't hold a phone. It's really tiny, but I love it. So I'm actually lucky enough in this studio to have a dressing room, which is very convenient for me. So this is my little dressing room, which I actually do plan on wallpapering and hopefully fixing these ridiculous rental fixtures. But it's very functional and I love it in here. It's just like a little cozy space for me. I keep all my sort of getting ready things, my perfumes, lipsticks, jewelry, things like that. This mirror I love too. So this woman in Milwaukee, she was like married to this very world-renowned doctor, and when she passed, she had collected like a whole massive mansion of like amazing things from all over the world. And so I got this out of her house for like $20, and I absolutely love it. I don't know where it was from. There's no sort of like signifier or anything, but this woman, I think she was like 100 or maybe like 99 or something like that when she died. So she had amazing things throughout her house. I wish I would have bought everything, but obviously space is limited, so not practical. So what really draws me to found sort of estate sale items and antiques and things that belong to others are not only the quality and the uniqueness of the piece, but the story behind them. I really like the idea of almost like making up a life or a story for someone that previously owned this. Obviously, I didn't really know this woman that owned this mirror, but in my head, I have this idea of who she might have been, and I love carrying that with me. So this is one of my favorite pieces. I actually made this for a Kentucky Derby party. I didn't want to wear those like fascinator things, so I made this ostrich feather headband, and I absolutely adore it. It's so much fun. I actually wear this more often than you would think. It's really, I don't know, it always sparks a conversation too, which I love. Home to me is a space that you feel comfortable to express yourself and be creative and explore all your kooky fascinations with hobbies and decorating and collecting, anything you want to do. I really struggle with the notion that homes need to feel always presentable and like they're a stage for other people when they're really your space to express yourself. And that's what makes me feel at home, is just feeling like I'm comfortable to do as I please, and it's not here for other people, even though it might be nice for them to look at. It's really my own.
Thanks for watching. For more Homeworthy content, be sure to like and subscribe.